Today we're going to do a little steak experiment and try to find out if you can not just dry age a steak at home, but do it in 3 days. Horns up and welcome to a brand new episode of Headbanger's Kitchen. Folks, today we're going to be dry aging some steaks. Now normally dry aging is something that takes a lot of time, 28 days, 35 days, 45 days, and it could be even longer. But ain't nobody got time for that. So today we're going to try dry aging some steaks in 3 days, and we're going to do it using something called KOJI rice. Anyway, enough jibber jabber, let's get dry aging. This is KOJI rice, a cooked rice that has a fungus on it called Aspergillus oryza, which is a Japanese fungus used to make miso, sake, soya sauce and many other things. I've been told you can dry age steaks using this, and in 3 days you'll have a proper dry aged steak. So we'll put this to the test. I also have some shio koji, which is a liquid form of this rice which I made at home by fermenting it for 7 days. If this experiment goes well, I can teach you how to make this shio koji too. For this experiment, I'll be using filet mignon as my cut of choice. I get them out of the bag and pat them dry with some paper towels. Then I get them on a wire rack. I thought I'd dry age 2, but since the steak sizes were a bit uneven, I went ahead with 3 steaks. For 2 of them, I just used the KOJI rice as is, and you gotta make sure that it sticks on the steak. Maybe next time I could run it through a food processor to make the grain smaller, which would help it stick better, but I think I did okay and I got 2 steaks covered. Then for my final steak, I covered it with the shio koji as best I could. On top, then flipped it over, then got some on the sides and the top again. Into my fridge those went for 3 whole days. And after 3 whole days, those steaks were looking like totally different beasts. I proceeded to scrape that KOJI rice off the steaks, and both the steaks which I aged with the whole rice felt a lot harder than the one with the shio koji. Anyway, once I got that stuff off, it was time to line up the steaks. The first one was a fresh filet mignon, which is our control steak. The second was the shio koji aged steak. The third one was the rice aged, but I washed it under cold water and patted it dry. And the fourth one, I just scraped the KOJI rice off, but didn't wash it. Anyway, now it was time to cook the steaks, but first I seasoned them on both sides with salt and also made sure I got the sides. Then I got my cast iron pan on the stove, added some oil, and when it was nice and hot, in went my steaks. 1, 2, 3 and 4. And then I just let them cook. Once I flipped them over, there was a noticeably different crust on each of them. Then once they cooked on the second side, I flipped it again, and man, it looked gnarly, and I was worried I had burnt them because just look at the crust. I mean, you can see that each of them has a different crust and it is really like dark and charred. Anyway, I checked the temperature, I seared them on the sides as well, and when they were done, I removed them from the pan. Now I just let those steaks rest, but take a good look at each of them, how the crust and the caramelization is different on each and every one. Also tell me, is that burnt or just charred? I know I was freaking out because it looks super black, but I mean, that's one heavy metal looking steak. Oh yeah! Now folks, if you like this video and if you like steaks, make sure you smash that like button. Anyway, it was time to slice in, and I started with steak number 4 because that was the one that came off the pan first. That crust was almost crispy, but the steak itself was super juicy. Then I followed that with steak number 3, which also had a crispy crust. Then came steak 4, which was perfectly cooked. And then our control, which honestly was just like cutting through butter. And there are the 4 steaks, absolutely gorgeous looking and perfectly cooked. But the main question is, how do they taste? Was it worth dry aging them? Was it better with the KOJI rice or the shio koji, or should I have not dry aged them at all? Anyway, time to taste and find out. Alright folks, it's time to taste the steaks, and I have my resident taste tester Dipti here joining me.
I was woken up for a nap for this.
Yes, I woke Dipti up from her nap to taste some steak. Isn't that the best way to wake up?
If you're a dog.
Okay, shall we start tasting?
Yep.
Alright, start from here.
So you're not going to tell me what is what, right?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it. Oh, that's a good steak.
It's like good steak.
So good. Okay, are you ready to taste steak number 2?
Yes.
Alright.
Say that again.
Alright, are you ready to taste steak number 2?
Let's do it.
Alright, this one. This has a sweetness to it.
Yeah. That's really interesting and almost like a coffee rub kind of taste.
It's very sweet. Definitely doesn't taste beefier. Just has a different sweetish taste to it.
Almost a bit like miso.
Yes,
The
almost.
condiment, not the dog.
Yes, the condiment, not the dog. Okay, steak number 3. I'm holding this heavy board. The crust is crustier.
But the koji flavor is not intense.
Yeah, the sweetness is not there in this one. So, in terms of flavor, very mildly sweetish, but
It's
not.
just like a very well
It has a crust basically.
aged steak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the final one,
Let's do it.
the crust on this one.
That is like a crispy crust.
So now let me reveal to Dipti what we've eaten. So the first steak was our control, obviously. That was really good, super. The second one had the shio koji,
Ah,
which gave it a way sweeter flavor.
right.
The third one was the koji rice, but I washed off the koji rice.
So you essentially put the beef in rice. Put it in rice. Like you do mobile phones.
Ah, yes. I. Such
Can you believe I married this guy, huh?
The third steak was, yes, I washed it after I scraped off the rice. And the fourth steak, I only scraped off the rice. I didn't wash it.
Okay.
So it definitely made a difference. But do you feel like it's. Which one do you like the best?
Honestly, it's a really good steak. I don't feel like it even needs to be dry aged. So I actually really enjoyed the controlled steak.
Yeah, even I got to be honest, I do enjoy the crispy crust of the fourth steak. But steak number 1, I mean, when it's a fillet, I guess you really don't need to do anything to it. Even dry aging, I think, is probably not worth it. I just prefer a plain fillet on its own.
But to be fair, I really love the flavor of the shiokoji.
Yeah.
If maybe it had just a very thin layer of the shiokoji and the flavor was not as pronounced, I think I would have liked it more, where you can taste some of the beef.
But I scraped off the shiokoji, so it's not cooked with the shiokoji.
Right, but even then, like it was aged with a really thick layer of shiokoji.
Yeah.
Maybe with a slightly thinner layer, it wouldn't have been nearly as
Sweet.
in your face.
Well, I guess we are going to continue experimenting, but for the time being, I think the controlled steak wins.
Yep.
Anyway, you let me know if
What a
you're.
surprise.
Yes. The experiment was that don't do experiments.
No! That's the worst lesson. Keep experimenting. You might stumble on something wonderful.
Okay, so we'll take Dipti's advice. Keep experimenting. Let me know if you're going to try to dry age some steaks in koji. And we're going to go and finish these steaks now. And I'll see you on the next episode of Headbanger's Kitchen. Until then, cheers and keep cooking. I just want to say thank you to all my supporters on Patreon and YouTube channel memberships. Thank you for all that you do. Horns up. And if you'd like to join the club, the links are in the video description below this video. Thank you. Come again.